Wonderful. So I'm very, very glad that all of you are here today. And, this is one of the panels where all of you seem really enthusiastic. So I'm so excited to interview you and talk to all of you. So before I go, I'm going to just give you some ground rules. The first one is that you will have 2 minutes to do your introduction, which is going to be who are you, maybe your occupation, and what are you standing for? What is your mandate for your ward? Okay, and that you'll have 2 minutes to speak, each of you, and I'll have a stopwatch, and I'll stop you if you go way beyond it. So it's nice to keep to that, so that everybody gets a time, equal time. Thereafter, every question will be about 1 minute, and please stick to the question because most of my happy, excited candidates, they just go overboard with their excitement, and so it just doesn't allow the others to share their wisdom. So I want to give everybody a chance. The third thing is that we will cover a few grounds, and some of you will get some questions, and some will get other questions. So there was some comment about why I'm not giving every question to everybody. That's not possible in an interview. So I'll try my best to be as fair as possible. But sometimes, some people will get some easy questions, like some candidates said, some easy questions. That person was biased because he was giving easy questions to something. So I'm going to try and avoid that today as far as possible. So let's start with Gino. Gino, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. So Gino, can you give us your introduction?
Absolutely. I'll try my best to keep it to 2 minutes. Thank you so much for organizing this, and I appreciate the opportunity. Quick background, I came here when I was 19 years old. I've lived in 8 different countries prior to that. Experiences I've had included being, exposed to war, political divide, and sectarianism. But I also learned some valuable experiences as well, which included learning how to adapt to different cultures. At university, I had the opportunity to play soccer at Dalhousie University. That's where I met my wife. We moved to Edmonton 17 years ago, 16 of which have been lived downtown. We live in Riverdale with our daughter, 2 cats, and a brand new puppy. My wife is the Associate Dean at the Business School of Equity, Diversity, and Integration at U of A. My work has included owning a coffee shop for 3.5 years. I have been on stage in theater, in film, and run a dance school. As well, the bulk of my career has been working as a civilian for the Department of National Defense in teaching our military troops before going abroad, conflict resolution, consensus building, and cultural sensitivity. All of this essentially experience has taught me, including my parents, to approach every challenge with one goal in mind, and that is to come to common grounds. Some of my priorities include affordable housing. I'm sure everybody has that on their list as well. A transport that is always working towards being green and affordable and accessible. Public resources such as libraries and parks, which was my escape when I didn't have much. I was able to go there, and it is not driven by profit, but rather by by the people. I love arts and culture. Of course, I've been in it, and I'm going to work as best as I can to help my colleagues. I will end it there so I don't go over 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sticking, first of all, to your time. You're such a versatile person. I already see it. Wow, thanks.
It's hard to get everything in, so.
So let's go ahead and give the mic to Gabriella.
Thank you very much. It's Gabrielle.
Sorry about that. It's Gabrielle, right? Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Mary. So my degree is in law, and I have been a lawyer for 25 years. I've done every kind of law imaginable. I have done Indian residential schools. I've worked with the province, with the federal government, and with the municipal government. So I know how to work with all levels of government. I know the processes, and I know the players, quite frankly, so I can get things done. Part of what I do, I own a consulting company, and I teach city councilors how to do their jobs. Not the city council, or they'd be doing a better job. but I do teach best practices. I've even given the city manager, Andre Corbold, whom I used to work with at Environment, my template for how to make a decision on council. And he's going to be using that going forward so that we make better decisions as a council, whether or not I get elected. I have created, along with a number of people from across Canada, the Coalition for Canadian Police Reform. So when we're talking about reform and what it takes, talk is cheap. I've actually done things. So creating that coalition to make a national policing college, to make sure that we change the way police are trained, and we make sure that lived experience is what informs their training throughout their careers, starting from rookie all the way through. I have run the Canadian, yeah, exactly right. I've run the Police Commission, so I know policing inside and out. I have an intimate understanding of budgeting. I've run credit unions across Canada. I've run billion-dollar organizations. And I have been an integral volunteer in the community. I'm the president currently of Autism Edmonton. I believe in inclusive opportunities, in women being represented, also in minorities being represented. And I believe in inclusive opportunities for everyone. My son is autistic, and I believe that everyone needs an opportunity for good employment, good transit, good education, and that is what I stand for. So I can hit the ground running on day one. I won't have a 6-month learning curve in terms of how to be a councillor. I know how the job is done, governance, oversight, every single thing in between, and all levels of government.
So we are a little over time there, but that's good with all your experience. We can see that you're totally primed for this role. So let's move on to Adrian. You'll
Yes,
have to
unmute.
unmute.
Sorry, unmute, sorry. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for hosting tonight's debate, and to Ladies Corner for organizing this forum. Grassroots media organizations like yours play an important role in our democratic process. Thank you, Gino, Gabrielle, Joshua, and Anne for joining tonight to help make tonight's debate a success. My name is Adrian Bruff. I'm a community activist and organizer here on Treaty 6 territory, traditional meeting ground of the Cree, Blackfoot, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and Métis people. Disability advocate, working class champion with a 10-year career in the field of social work. And I'm ready to become the next councillor for Edmonton's new riding, Ward Odemin. I grew up in a working poor class family. My mother was a single parent, and she raised my brother and I. And growing up poor meant that as kids, there were many nights we went to bed hungry. We didn't have enough food to eat. And at one point, while facing homelessness, we had to rent a room in a house where we shared kitchen and bathrooms with strangers. So just imagine an entire family of 3 with roommates. And this wasn't for a lack of trying. My brother and I, we saw our mother work odd jobs trying to make ends meet, sacrificing her own goals and aspirations so that my brother and I can accomplish ours. My brother went on to become a high school teacher and now the author of curriculum textbooks, and I'm ready to become your next city councillor. Working class people deserve to be represented by a working class champion. And now, more than ever, when our city starts to build back from this pandemic, we need that voice on council. My goal is to contribute in making Edmonton the best place to live, raise a family, invest, and retire. We can create safer communities, a thriving economy, and build an inclusive and affordable city for everyone. We can accomplish this by addressing social issues like homelessness, making sure we're investing in communities and families, and building a robust economy, a resilient economy for the future. And I have a plan and some ideas that I'll be sharing over the course of this debate on how we can accomplish that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. That was perfect. Let's move on to Anne. Anne? I think there's some internet issues there. So I think we'll move on to Joshua till Anne internet services have been revived. So let's, so Joshua, can I hand over the mic to you?
Thank you very much, Mary. If I understand it correctly, just a bit of an intro as well as what we think our mandate is, if elected. Great. Well, hi everyone. It's so great to actually share space with you. We always like pass each other, so it's really nice to get to spend time together. I'm excited about this. Thank you, Ladies Corner, for hosting this. My name is Joshua Wolchansky. My pronouns are he, him. It's an honor to join you today on traditional Treaty 6 territory, lands that were occupied, governed by Indigenous people since time immemorial. It's in the spirit of community building, collaboration that I'm running for council. I'm, a passionate person. I grew up in Capilano, went to school in Central McDougall at Victoria School of the Arts. I now live in Oliver, work downtown, teach in Queen Mary Park. Like so many, I've built my life here in Edmonton. And I think in seeing how the pandemic has affected our communities, it's been really heartbreaking to see, my mother lost work, my sister lost work, friends lost work, friends have moved away. And in seeing how the direction and how council has responded, felt the call of that public service. I've been a public servant for nearly a decade now. I work with the province. I have experience in economic development, international relations, and most recently, environmental protection. I'm active in our community. I raise funds with an organization called the Fruit Loop Society of Alberta. We raise funds for charitable causes, nonprofits, including organizations like the Edmonton Mennonite Centre for Newcomers, HIV Edmonton, the Edmonton Two-Spirit Society, just to name a few. I'm all about collaboration. And, I think it's really about working together with our communities and our colleagues on council to address the social and housing crisis, to reignite the downtown core, to tackle climate change, and invest in our neighborhoods. We need to stop the urban sprawl. We need to stop developers having councillors in their back pocket, and we need to put people over profit. Thank you very much, Mary. Back over to you.
Wow, thanks, Joshua. That was really cool. And I'm sorry we couldn't get you in between. Actually, we had moved over to you and then it just disappeared. I mean, something happened. So let's quickly get this going.
Thank you. Sorry to have disappeared there. I'll start from the beginning. Born and raised in Edmonton, went on to study originally international development, which involved a year abroad in West Africa. And while I was there, I sort of saw a lot of community development work that was sort of working at cross purposes to each other, lots of different approaches to trying to make our communities better. I was really inspired by some case studies in Brazil that focused on a city planning, urban design approach to making great communities. That led me to pursue a master's degree at the London School of Economics in city planning and 5 years of living and working in the UK. I then went on to Vancouver, where I did some industrial city planning, and then home to Edmonton in 2012. I live in Oliver right now with my young daughter and partner. And I love this area. I love this ward. I think it's 13 of the best neighborhoods in Edmonton. And for me, what's so exciting is that it really is that opportunity to live in a 15-minute community. We have so many assets, so many strengths to our city, to our neighborhoods, the River Valley, some great parks, a connected network, good transit, but we also have some really significant gaps. I've been on the board of the Right at Home Housing Society previously for 6 years, and in 2019 had the opportunity to join as a staff member. So I'm really excited to bring my expertise in housing and homelessness to really tackle that issue that's facing our community right now. My 7 years at the City of Edmonton in planning has also given me the skills to really understand how the system works and what makes a councillor effective. I'm really excited to bring those skills and experience to help us tackle the big issues, again, like housing and homelessness, climate change, addressing the root causes of, sometimes feeling unsafe in our neighborhoods. So thank you again so much. I look forward to the questions, and apologies to be joining you from my phone instead of my computer.
Thank you so much. And this whole team really inspires me. Wow. I'm so pleased that I'm interviewing all of you amazing people. There's a lot of, interesting and amazing wisdom from so many parts of the world here in this team. And I find it really interesting. So I'm going to go back to Gino. I'm just following a clockwise direction so that everybody gets a chance. Why do you think, Gino, you are the best candidate for your board?
Well, To be honest, I mean, I've heard my colleagues here, and everybody's incredible at what they've done and experiences they bring. So I'm so happy that we're surrounded by such incredible talent. To be honest with you, I don't come from a political background. My experiences, and I've experienced homelessness myself, like Adrian has, so I'm sure he understands too, has been in seeing conflict and trying to avoid it, and training people to come to common ground and building consensus and bringing people together, whether it is a provincial government or the police department and all that. So, you know, during COVID, how I came about this was most of my neighbors are retired, so I went and I asked them if I could do their grocery shopping. And after a few months, they thought that my skills and strengths that I have after getting to know me would be best served to run for city council. It wasn't in my horizon before that at all. This just came about, and after much deliberation in December, we decided to to announce to run. But I think my greatest strength is bringing people together and hearing everybody. So it is what my training is in, and having been exposed to so many different cultures and ways of life, I think I would do a good job at it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that. Gabrielle, you have some really, really interesting experience, especially with police. Like, so I really want to hear a little bit more about that, and what do you think you bring to the table as one of the best candidates in your ward?
Thank you, Mary. So one of the things that's really important to me, and I think Gino touched on this, as did all candidates, is inclusiveness and collaboration. So not only am I trained in how to build consensus, but I have worked with some of the most difficult organizations across Canada to be able to build consensus, build stakeholder relationships, and bring people together to solve the most complex and important issues facing municipalities today. So I'm already doing that in the background. I'm not waiting until I get this role as a municipal representative. In the background, I'm already doing these things. So with Savita, or Capital Region Housing, I am already making changes. I joined last year, and I've already made changes to refocus our attention on providing more affordable housing and getting back to our roots. I too, little known fact, have spent a lot of time in poverty and using a women's shelter, making sure that my child and I, having been a single parent for most of my life, are safe. And so safety as a community is extremely important to me. And knowing the ins and outs of policing and social agencies, because I'm a relentless social agency volunteer, has been integral in making sure that I already have those stakeholder relationships and connections, so that when I start, I can make sure to leverage those and create a collaborative and inclusive society that embraces everyone from a cultural perspective.
Mary, I believe you might be on mute.
I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mute. Adrian, can we give you the opportunity to share why you are the best candidate for this board?
Thank you for that question. I have been organizing and engaging within my community for years, election year, non-election year. Whether it's stepping up to volunteer on my community league board in Oliver, volunteering in Macaulay at their Amenity Community Initiative, organizing with Riverdale Community, Central McDougall, and showing up at their community cleanup. I have been organizing and showing up within my community. I've decided to step up to run for public office because of my background, experience, and qualification, which is important because the number one issue that is currently affecting residents in Ward Odemin is the issue of homelessness. Every year, I organize an annual back-to-school supply drive. This is to help low-income Edmontonians who don't have the supplies to go to school to get the resources that they need. Who knew that in a city and in a province as wealthy as ours, folks didn't have basic school supplies? After hearing that, I decided to organize this annual event. And to date, we have helped just over 2,000 families get the school supplies that they need, ensuring that there is no barrier towards folks getting an education. Because of my background and experience, because of my involvement and ties to community, I've decided to step up to be their representative. And I'm excited to share with folks as this debate goes along my plan towards how we can realistically address homelessness in a caring and compassionate way.
Thanks so much, Adrian. That was beautiful. Joshua.
Hi, Mary. Adrian, love the initiative of those school supplies. I mean, like 2,000 families, that's an incredible accomplishment. You know, I grew up with a single parent. Like it seems so many. Like I feel like that's something that ties us together. It's that need for public service. I know that really would have helped out, like growing up. So like kudos, thank you very much. You know, I was raised to take care of my community. My mom was suddenly a single parent. It was during the Klein years when there was no government investment. There was no safety net in people. We had the good grace of being able to move in with my grandmother. But I know that there are so many in our community that are facing similar challenges that don't have a safety net. And so I want to step up and make sure that no one has to have those challenges, right? That your government should be there to support you, to provide services for you. You know, I think what I bring to the table, what sets me apart is my range of experience, from public service, community activism, my training in the arts, working with local organizations already, right? Odaimin is incredibly diverse in that we have not only residences, we have the most amount of business improvement areas. We've got businesses, we have the heart of the city. The demands that face it are going to require flexibility and agility in understanding the unique aspects of those problems and to be able to work together. I think that another thing that really sets me apart is communication and engagement. You know, it's not just about collaborating with our colleagues on city council. It's about communicating those changes and understanding the needs of the different community, because change management and new initiatives is so important. And it's not just about the excitement of the change. It's about making sure that we're getting it right and that Edmontonians are on board with that change. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. It was awesome. Everything looks so well researched here. This is amazing. Okay. I'm going to give Anne the opportunity to explain why the ward should elect her.
Thank you. What made me most excited to run is the feeling that I can, take a lot of the shared values in this room and in this space and the types of change that we want to see that I'm hearing from residents and really make those changes happen. My 7 years at the City of Edmonton, working in leading roles, gave me a really great sense of how to navigate that system. It can be quite complex, but I have a great sense of, the right pressure points, the things that need to shift, and those changes that we can do that will be truly transformative. Again, it's been talked about quite a bit, but we do face a housing crisis right now. My 6 years on the board of Right at Home, and now as a staff member working day in and day out on housing and homelessness, allows me to bring that experience to City Council, and that's what really motivates me to feel like I can make that significant change on council.
Thanks, Anne. Actually, your ward is the ward with the biggest haves and have-nots. And I feel that the richest people and the poorest people live there. And it's so hard to see that. And it's like, the place where you see people really with addictions and so many issues and homelessness. And you see people living in the biggest mansions. And you wonder, you have this whole dichotomy in your ward. So I'm going to first ask Gino, how does he plan to deal with homelessness and the opioid crisis that is so common in that region?
Thank you. Well, because I've been and experienced it, and I've been continuously, unlike, my colleagues have great experiences, and I come from a different background of experience, but we have spent so much more money in trying to sustain the situation than trying to come up with a permanent solution for it. And I think we need to work towards that. The quickness at which we moved when COVID hit to move everybody in the Shaw Conference Center, now the Edmonton Conference Center, was amazing. All of a sudden, we had the resources and all that. I looked at the route, and I think what we have done is we have also, what the provincial government has to also work with the federal government to provide the funding, but we've also densified all the shelters, all the safe injection sites, and all the places where homelessness is an issue into the Macaulay, the Boyle, and the Chinatown area. It's almost become like a dumping ground. And it's almost like a reverse broken window thing. When people do go to these injection sites, when people come out of them, and all of a sudden you're surrounded with the same thing again and again, it doesn't help. So the first step would be for us to try for all the communities to share a little bit of that burden. And I know there are communities that are, and I know there are communities that get up in arms, but at some point we have to do that, because it helps not only the people that are homeless and going through addiction, but it also helps the community. As an example, Macaulay, everybody needs to be treated fair. And people need to be able to breathe. And God knows that the people in Macaulay are trying continuously to help. So if we start at that point, I think that will go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gino. There was so much heart in your answer. That was beautiful. Gabrielle, I want to ask you about inclusion. Inclusion is a huge problem in our country, but especially in certain zones where you find that certain people get opportunities other people don't have access to. So how are you going to help make a change in this?
So I don't know how many people know about my personal background, but I have a 27-year-old son. He's autistic. He's on the high end of the spectrum. He's had cancer. He's got type 1 diabetes. He will need inclusive opportunities, not only for good employment, but for education, for housing. He's not going to be able, and a ton of our children are not going to be able to afford housing. It's just not in our wheelhouse, and we aren't providing for that. It's one of the things that I would like to see, and I will drive, is inclusive opportunities and having the city lead that as one of the foremost organizations offering inclusive opportunities. Right now, they are not. So when it comes to HR and hiring people, I would like to see us get rid of the cover letter. Let's talk about real practical solutions. New immigrants to this country don't have the language skills to be able to answer exactly what's needed. So when I was with the province, I made sure, and I was dubbed actually by our current city manager, cultural ambassador for this province. So what I wanted to do was drive inclusive opportunities with HR, making sure that we did not simply look for the keywords that they do right now when they're looking for cover letters and resumes, that we actually make sure that people can do the jobs. And so new immigrants coming to this country, and I've spoken with so many of them in this ward in particular, because you're right, Mary, this is an extremely diverse ward. They have the background, they have the education, they can start in these roles right away. They just need the opportunities. And so we don't need to have that experience that people are looking for. What we need to have is passion, drive, entrepreneurial attitude, and an opportunity to make a difference. And I really think that my background working with a number of organizations that offer inclusive opportunities like autism, like Capital Region Housing, like the Coalition, like Answers, a board that I am on, and an organization that I started, the very first not-for-profit in all of Alberta for sex workers, run by sex workers, where we give those marginalized communities the voice that they need in order to be able to make a difference. That is what I'm here for. I speak before council on this. I was there last week speaking before council, and we made our voices heard. And in fact, we achieved a difference. We made an outcome happen, and we made a difference in order for those marginalized communities to move forward and have a voice.
Wow, my goodness, I'm so impressed by this team. You guys have been doing everything like preemptively, you know, you haven't been waiting for the day when I get this hat, that's when I'm going to start working. So thank you so much for all you do in the communities. Adrian, I have a question for you. You know that recently the ward numbers have been changed to Dene and Cree names. And I think that's just like one step. What else can be done to give to acknowledge the indigenous communities which have been the first people of this country?
Great question, and I'm happy to see that that City Council decided to change the ward names. Odemin is an Anichibe word. It means heart of the city, and it's also a fruit strawberry. I want to take this opportunity to talk to folks about the new ward because it's really important. So in this ward, if you're from the communities of Westmount, Queensmere Park, Central MacDougall, Macaulay, Boyle Street, Riverdale, Rossdale, Downtown, Oliver, Prince Rupert, Westwood, Spruce Ave, and Blatchford, I'm ready to become your next city councillor. Truth and reconciliation is important. That is why I wear my moose hide pin that was given to me by a volunteer, by a community member in Westwood. And I went home and I signed that pledge to make sure that as a male, and I'm also encouraging Gino and Josh to sign this, to join on to this campaign to help put an end to violence against our women. I also want to take this opportunity to talk about housing. There's a lot of folks in our community that are experiencing homelessness. Many of those folks are Indigenous folks. And I have a plan on how we can best address it moving forward. My two-part plan for homelessness is not only realistic, but it's also achievable. And we have the opportunity to cut homelessness by up to 80% in the next 5 years. And this is the plan. The first part of my plan is I want to turn the old Remand Center on 97th Street and 4 abandoned hotels and apartment buildings on Stony Plain Road into wellness centers. So what that will look like is the first couple of floors in these centers will have all the support that folks need. Mental health support, addictions counseling, 24-hour access to food downstairs. And then above that, we're going to build 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom permanent housing for them to stay. The reality is, Mary, many folks who are homeless are at a stage where we can only provide palliative care, and they're also aging. So this wellness center will be a good start for those individuals. The second part of my plan is I want this city to work with organizations that are already doing good work to house our houseless and convert a lot of the abandoned houses that we have in our city that are boarded up into one-on-one supportive living, where that individual or that family can move into that house and have ongoing 24-hour social work supported by these agencies. As I said, this two-part plan for homelessness is not only realistic, it's also achievable, and we have the potential to reduce homelessness by 80%. And I'm the only candidate in this race that have a realistic plan to tackle homelessness, and I've spent the last 10 years in the field of social work, working in our inner city, supporting our most vulnerable. I understand their needs, and I'm ready to address them.
Thank you so much. You've handled one piece of that equation. You think about the rest, okay? Because there's more to that. So Joshua, I'm going to ask you about the waste management and the climate change initiatives of the city of Edmonton. How far do you think we are going, and do you think it's appropriate? What else can be done?
Thanks, Mary. I love that question. It's and it's so important, right? Like our winters are going to get colder, our summers are going to get hotter, they're going to get drier. Climate change is here, and the next council, their work is cut out for them. As the only one who is working in environmental protection, I'm ready to hit the ground running. I think one of the first things that in the upcoming election folks can do to make sure that climate change is on the agenda is to not elect a conservative councillor. We currently have an incredibly sprawled city. We need to put a stop to that. The more that we build out and out and out, our footprint is going to go up and up and up. There's a few things that I think that we can tangibly do. A couple of them is we first and foremost need to reduce our carbon footprint. This can be done through initiatives like electrifying our fleet, investing in multimodal transportation, completing our bike lane network here in O'Damon, and encouraging folks. I lived in Amsterdam for a couple of years, and encouraging folks to actually use their bikes. It's the best way to get around. Big fan of it.
Only in summer.
Sorry?
Only in summer.
Only in, that's very true. And you know, I think that we do need to take it further. I think that we need to build our city using high quality infrastructure products and actually invest in them so that when climate change happens, that as our infrastructure is put to the test, it's not going to fail and we're not going to have to pay double, triple, quadruple in repairs. And finally, I think that we need to invest in our river valley in environmental interpretation and appreciation. I've proposed a River Valley Ambassador Program. This would be a program dedicated in the river valley that would actually encourage people to understand the traditional Indigenous land uses, protection of wildlife corridors, you know, against development in the river valley. It's really about not just the city making decisions for the community, but it's also encouraging the understanding and the appreciation for why it's so important that we actually do invest to meet the climate storm. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks so much. I need a little more clarification about the solid waste management, but I'll come back to you, Joshua. Okay, because I feel the rollout of the, you know, the garbage cans, it wasn't done in the best possible way. So we can talk a little bit more about that. To Anne, I have the question of technology and innovation. And Edmonton has been like a place for technology and a lot of work on, you know, the, what is that new thing? The robotics and all those things. I forgot the name. So that was very much like the hub, you know, Edmonton was the hub. So how is that going to help Edmonton in terms of economic recovery and getting out of this COVID pandemic?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, and Edmonton is so well positioned to take advantage of many different industries. So, you know, tech and robotics is one that you've touched on. I personally am very excited for the opportunities with the clean energy sector. I think the work that's already happening with creating blue hydrogen, so still some carbon intensity, but captured for hydrogen production, but moving into green hydrogen production, just a phenomenal opportunity for us to transition out of our current sort of oil-based economy. I think some of the other innovations that are very exciting for our city are with biotech and biomanufacturing. The U of A, of course, is just a hub of that work, and we are so lucky in the city to have access to that phenomenal research facility and all the investment opportunities that it brings. I know there was an announcement recently about investment in further vaccine production. I think Edmonton is incredibly well placed to take advantage of those types of policies. I'm really excited by the work that Global Edmonton has already been doing to coordinate with our regional partners and attract that investment in. I'd like to see City Council come to the table a bit more proactively when we're out there searching for that international investment. By making us the easy choice, by promoting the great opportunities here, and also making it a really attractive place for businesses to invest.
Thank you, Anne. That was so on point. You really are up to date on all that's happening here in Edmonton. That's awesome. Gino, you know, there are lots of things that you have to do in synergy with the provincial and the federal governments. And so how do you think you're poised to do that? And what are the kind of things you think we can do better as a council, getting enough resources from the provincial and the federal government?
Well, I want to start by saying I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm just kidding. That was but no, it's, you know, one of the first things I did, because of my background, is look at our relationship with the police department, with the provincial government, and so on and so forth. And so I've reached out to different people, I've spoken to the police department just to understand where they're coming from. And, you know, relationship building is about not pointing fingers, but going into to the police department and saying, why not I help you by taking a little bit of your fund and giving it to people that are actually experienced in dealing with addiction and mental health issues. So then you can deal with crime. How about I help you like that, rather than using terms that create division. Even with the provincial government, I feel like the more I learn about politics, it's tit for tat. And if I don't like you, therefore, I'm going to make all these people suffer because you and me don't get along. For me, it doesn't matter who the mayor is. It doesn't matter who it is. I need to work with you because it's not about us. It's about these people. So if you and me have to get along,
You hit the nail on the head. Thank you.
we need to help our homeless. That funding needs to come to them from the federal government, and hopefully it does. And then once that is done, you and me can go and hate each other as much as you want. If that's how you want to live, that's perfectly okay. But for the time being, and for what the task at hand requires, is for us to get along. And we need to consistently work and coming together and bringing things together and putting things in perspective. Thank you.
That's awesome. So true. It's a need of the hour, because I see even within the council, there's so much conflict and people are not getting through it. And, thinking about the constituency, just having all the squabbles, which is so difficult for us to sit and watch. We need people like you who can resolve those things and negotiate with people they hate. I mean, it doesn't matter if you hate them, because you're working for the community, you're not working for them.
Even on council, nobody wants to go to a toxic work environment. So we all need, even the number of people on council, we all need to have a respectful relationship to get along and get things done.
So true, Gino. Thank you so much. Gabrielle, you had mentioned a little bit about the police, and I've been part of so many of those conversations, and, like all the stuff that the police was accused of doing. Some of it you guys have addressed, but I'd like to see, these organizations grow as more efficient organizations. And I'm sure that there is a way to do that, to maybe cut down their budget, or I don't know what it is, but to give them only what they are supposed to be responsible for and not give them all this extra work. So they don't police homeless people, for example, or drug addicts on the street. Instead, they take care of crime, right? So what are the kind of things that you think the police should be doing, and what do you think they should not be involved in?
So you're absolutely right, Mary. This is a complete community effort. It's about having the right people at the right place at the right time for the right reasons. Not everything requires a use of force or police being present. I really know the details inside and out of policing and fire and community and city operations, and the what we offer for social institutes as well as community leagues. And what I really believe is that the solution involves a sharing of information and a review of our resources that we allocate, so that we take those resources. We don't necessarily lop 30% off the top, for instance. That's just not how financing and budget works, because that will just end up in, getting funded elsewhere by the province, for instance, as has been threatened, or, not the right changes being made. Systemic issues require systemic changes. And so that's why it really takes a two-pronged approach. Number one, making sure that there's transparent sharing of information. The community leagues who know where the issues are, who's involved, what's happening in their communities need to be empowered to take action on behalf of those individuals that they represent. And so that sharing of information between policing and fire and communities and social agencies needs to happen. Not everything is confidential. We need to work together to make sure that our most vulnerable are helped in the right way. And then from the systemic point of view, we need prevention and intervention. Because otherwise we're going to have the same issues occurring and recurring throughout the next 10 years. So we've had a 10-year end homeless plan that's taken 20 years, with action only happening in the last 2 years because there's an election coming up. How dare you, right? So we need to be able to marshal our resources and work with agencies like Junior Achievement, work with iHuman, who's working with women who on the streets who are pregnant. And sorry, that's my computer telling me it's 7 o'clock. Take action, do something. Work with those agencies that are doing the most good, like Niganan Developments, like Ambrose Place, culturally appropriate wraparound services with palliative care, harm reduction, all of those things that we need in order to make actual change. And so if we divert our resources to make sure that we are putting our resources in the right place, then we will make a real difference. And I have substantial plans to make that happen.
Thanks, Gabrielle. So, Adrian, we'd spoken a little bit about the inclusion issue, and you touched some pieces of that. I just wanted to ask you what somebody's mic is on. If you can turn it off, that would be awesome. So I just wanted to ask you, what is meaningful engagement with your constituents? What does it mean to you?
Well, as I said earlier in the debate, I've been engaging with my community for years. In an election year and in a non-election year, I've been organizing and volunteering, showing up, stepping up when my community league needed a member on their board in Oliver, organizing with community like Macaulay, Central Madougall, Queensmere Park, Westmount, volunteer on community cleanup in Riverdale, in Rossdale, in downtown, constantly engaging in my community, working with them on how we can make our city better. So I'll give you an example. Prince Rupert, they had a crematorium concern in their neighborhood. Folks in that neighborhood reached out to me because they knew I was a candidate for council. They invited me to show up and to listen to their concerns, and to also show up on the day of when they were picketing on the day they were protesting against the crematorium. So I showed up, I listened, I heard their concern, and then I went to work, reached out to councillors in the area, voicing my concerns about this crematorium. That community-led initiative in Prince Rupert led to a 3-0 decision in council not approving the crematorium. That's what folks can expect from me as their next councillor. I will continue to show up day in, day out, and engage. I'm also focused on making sure that when we are building back from this pandemic, community leagues, BIPOC folks are at the decision table. You know, we have never had someone that looks like me on council before. And when as our city built for 2 million people, my lens, my background, my experience, is going to be critical on council as we build that inclusive society. I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing, which is to continue showing up at community events. I'm going to continue door knocking every summer, return every phone call and every email. And every year, we're going to send out a ward update to all residents across the ward so that they know what we're doing at City Council. I am ready to get to work on October 18th. I hope I can count on Edmontonian support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Wow, that was totally on point. Joshua, we had left off a little bit about, the waste management and the deployment of the garbage bins. Is that ongoing in your area? Did you all get the garbage bins?
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, I think that the rollout, par for the course in a lot of things City Council has done. The thought was good, the planning was there, and then the execution, the community engagement, talking to people, it just never happened, right? And it's been heartbreaking to see the frustration. I'm hearing people on the doors. I just had a conversation the other day with people that it's like, I want to move forward with compost. I want to reduce my carbon footprint. I want to move towards a greener future. But council needs to learn when to lead, support, and get out of the way. And they really needed to support on this rollout. They needed to be there for people. And they're spending millions of dollars on social media posts that mean nothing, that don't have any information into it. It's about being responsive, and it's about moving engagement and communication into the 21st century. We expect representation that's going to meet people where they're at. They should be focused on living their lives to the fullest, not chasing after this and registering on a Thursday for maybe speaking at council on a Tuesday if you're called. We need to make our framework easier for people to actually access those in power. And it's up to council to set that tone. It's up to council to make sure that we're actually putting people first, and that engagement, communication, and ongoing relationship building is a priority.
I think very true, Joshua. It's really important for the councillors to remember that they put them in power. They didn't get their power just like that. So you have to remember that they are the people who they're working for, and that's so important. And the consultation has been really poor, and all the traditional methods somehow are not working as well as we would like. it misses the connection. There's no connection, and people really need that connection when
I
there is a
couldn't agree
new
more.
change that's
Yeah,
happening.
Mary, I think that it's been thought so often that you're at the will of your government. Your representatives are there for you. Hold them to account, and that's what people can expect from me as a counselor. It's someone that's actually going to be accessible, responsive, someone who's active in the community, someone who's going to actually listen, engage, and if I make a mistake, when I make a mistake, I'm going to own up to it, and I'm going to absolutely learn from it and move forward.
Thank you. Anne, so how do you think, we as Edmontonians can revive our economy? How can the council help to support the revival of our economy? Because everything was so down with the pandemic. Lots of unemployment, lots of small businesses lost their ground, and it was a tough time for all of us. Plus, mental health deteriorated so much for so many people. So there are so many things that the council could think of and collaborate and communicate with communities. Let me know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the motivations for me for running in this election was that the steps that we take next are going to have a huge impact on how we sort of reset and redirect ourselves as a city. So you started by speaking about small businesses and the way that city can support them coming out of the pandemic. For me, one of the most important things the city can do is get out of the way of business. So while I was at the city on the zoning bylaw team managing that group, I spent a lot of time just trying to reduce our regulatory barriers. It's not even a regulatory framework, just a lot of regulatory barriers to make it easier for businesses to get up and running. And I think it's essential that work carry forward. And it's exciting, we often think, well, we need to amend our bylaws. It's these long processes that take years and years. But in fact, what we saw through the pandemic is that the city can respond very quickly when city council provides clear direction. So a lot of the pandemic-specific programs around patios, those just happened. We didn't have to spend months amending our policies. We just changed how we interpreted and applied those. So I'm really excited to continue that ethic of getting things done and clearing the way for businesses to invest. Another key intervention I'd like to see is to shift the city's storefront improvement grant. Right now, it's a great program. Many people across the ward and the different business association have probably seen, these great transformations of different shops. I'm thinking of 97 Hot Pot on 97th Street, but lots of different options and lots of different examples of a very successful program. But a challenge is that it's a grant matching program. So businesses get caught in a bit of a catch-22. They need to have revenue to invest to make more revenue, but if they don't have that, they can't invest to increase their revenue. So I'd really like to shift that program to a pure grant with a payable loan that can be paid back over a number of years once those investments have started to come into returns for the business. In terms of some of the social rebuilding, I hear over and over again just how sad people are on the loss of our downtown, that we don't feel it's a vibrant, safe place to be anymore. I'd really like to reverse that. Key thing, of course, is reusing and adapting some of that empty commercial space with residential redevelopment and conversion to bring people back, whether or not the offices become full again, just making sure that we have people living and enjoying downtown. Those are some of the key things. I think some of the social connections as well. We have so many great community leagues, great community groups working together. And so just for the city council to provide resources to ensure that those groups can continue doing the great work that they're doing to bring us all together as community.
Thanks, Anne. The last question I have for today is about crime. There's a lot of petty crime and things in downtown. Plus, there's a lot of racist crime, like where you see hijabi women getting hit and all these kind of things which don't really bode well for our city. Gino, how do you plan to tackle that?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think part of, like Anne said, making downtown and places more vibrant, and I know Joshua has mentioned having more lit streets and things like that add to safety and all that, but I think beyond that, we need to have community engagement. We need to have not only, universities coming up with good ideas and policies, and businesses putting it in practice, and government converting them into policies and putting them in practice. But also, if we base everything as a core value on compassion, we deal with everything on an individual basis. So this is what happened. We need to deal with it. But even our recruitment, as an example, of our police department has things like as values, which are protecting and safety and things like that. But it doesn't have the word compassion, which most of the recruitments in Europe have. And then from that point, everything is set on the basis of those values. Even our city values, do we have the word compassion in them? So if we start from that as the core and lead with compassion, then all our policies, all our engagements with the community will lead to that. And I think an approach, protesting and all that, is a very good way to get that attention. But in the background, we need to do more than that. And that is to lead always with that value, and which is compassion. And we need to insert that in our universities. We need to insert that in our city values. We need to insert that with the police department, the fire department, and then lead, because then policies get made from that point of view.
Thank you so much. That's so true. I mean, the way that, the police sometimes deal with indigenous women and some of those things, it just makes me very, very sad. And so, if there is some kind of training of cultural inclusion for all public services, and some kind of compassion training, it might help. That's what I believe.
Yes, and compassion training should not be, did you get your certification? Yes, I did. Okay, we'll renew it next year. It should be ongoing.
Yeah, and I think, there's a Japanese word called kaizen. I don't know how many of you have heard that, but it means that, when somebody does something good, people around him or the team say that, this guy needs to get a pat on his back for what he's just done. And, we have to keep on bolstering each other to do the best work, because it's not just a council's or it's not just a community's work. It's all of us together that make our communities the best. I'm so grateful to each of you for your amazing wisdom that you brought to this talk. And, this conversation was the best I've had so far. So I'm so grateful to each of you. And you all seriously are amazing people with so much talent. And I pray that the best decision happens on October 18th for this board. You have so much potential. All the best to all of you.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Thanks for sharing space, everyone. It was great to see you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.